Did you know that sometimes the most powerful thing a person can say is absolutely nothing? In a world that never stops talking, where every opinion demands a reaction and silence is seen as weakness, there are a rare few who've mastered the art of speaking less, yet saying more. They don't interrupt, they don't overshare, they don't chase attention with words. But when they speak, people listen. And when they don't, people notice. This isn't random, it's a conscious choice, a deep inner strength, and it comes straight from the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. If you want to protect your peace, earn deeper respect, and gain real influence in your relationships and career, you need to understand this. The ability to stay silent is not a weakness. It's a weapon. It's a form of control that most people will never master. But the Stoics did. In this video, we're breaking down 10 powerful traits of people who speak less, not because they're shy, but because they've learned to be intentional. Their silence isn't an absence of thought. It's a mark of wisdom, self-discipline, and quiet authority. If you've ever felt misunderstood for being the quiet one, or if you've ever regretted saying too much, too soon, this might be the reset you need. Number 1. The power of pause. Why Stoic people think before they speak. There's something undeniably powerful about someone who doesn't rush to respond. Picture this. You're in a room full of noise. People talking over each other, making quick jokes, jumping to answer before the question is even finished. And then, there's that one person. The one who leans back, breathes, and takes a second before saying a word. Their calm makes others uncomfortable, and their silence creates weight. Because deep down, we all recognize that real power doesn't shout, it pauses. That's the beauty of the Stoic approach. Stoic individuals don't speak because they feel pressured to fill a gap. They speak when their words carry purpose. They've mastered what most of us overlook, the pause. That moment of stillness before responding isn't hesitation, it's strength. It's where they gather their thoughts, reflect on their emotions, and ask themselves, is this worth saying? Will this add value? We live in a world addicted to speed. Fast replies, quick texts, instant opinions. But those who embrace Stoicism reject the urge to be the first. They choose to be the wisest instead. And in that pause, they filter out their ego, their anger, their need to win. What remains is a calm, calculated, meaningful response. This pause isn't just useful in debates or heated arguments. It shows up everywhere: work meetings, family discussions, relationships. It's what turns emotional reaction into thoughtful communication. Think about a time you said something you didn't mean. A moment where anger took over. Or a time you regretted snapping back too quickly. Maybe in a relationship, maybe at work, maybe online. If only you had paused. We've all been there. And that's what makes this trait so human, so relatable. But the Stoic person doesn't need to learn this lesson repeatedly. They've already understood that their power lies not in how much they speak, but in when they choose to speak. There's something magnetic about that. People lean in when they talk. Because they've created a rhythm where silence is part of the message. The pause becomes a canvas for their next sentence. It's not about having a sharp tongue. It's about having a sharp mind and knowing when it's worth speaking. So the next time someone pauses before replying, look closely. That's not awkwardness. That's someone thinking, processing, respecting the moment before speaking. And maybe that's the real power we've been missing in our own lives. What would change in your conversations if you paused first? What would change in your relationships? Number 2. Masters of observation. Why the quiet ones see more. There's a reason the quietest person in the room often knows the most. They're not zoned out. They're not intimidated. They're tuned in. While everyone else is rushing to make a point, the quiet one is busy noticing everything: the tension in someone's jaw, the nervous foot tapping under the table, the pause before someone answers a question. They don't just hear words, they read people. And that's no accident. Stoics are trained, by nature and by practice, to observe first. To listen deeply. To pick up on what's said, what's left unsaid, and the truth in between. They don't speak just to respond. They speak when the full picture is clear. That's what gives their words such weight. In a world obsessed with being seen, they've learned to value the art of seeing. This doesn't mean they're cold or distant. Quite the opposite. Their silence is active. It's intentional. It's soaking in every detail that others miss. And when they finally do speak, their words hit differently. Because they're shaped not by assumption, but by awareness. If you've ever had a conversation with someone like this, you'll remember how they made you feel. Understood, noticed, like they heard not just your voice, but your feelings beneath it. That's the gift of observation. But this level of awareness doesn't come from constant talking. It comes from listening, watching, absorbing, and in a way, it goes back to our roots. Remember sitting in a classroom, and there was always that one student who rarely raised their hand. Yet somehow, they always aced the test. Or maybe growing up, your sibling or cousin was the quiet one, never the loudest at dinner, but always the one who knew exactly what was going on. That's not coincidence, that's presence. Our fast-paced world rewards extroversion, but there's a quiet rebellion happening, led by those who choose to observe. Who see through the surface? Who can tell when someone's lying not by what they say, but by how they say it? These are the ones who notice when you're hurting, even when you smile. They pick up on energy shifts. They understand tone better than words. Why? Because they've trained themselves to listen more than they talk. And that's a rare superpower today. What would your relationships look like if you listened deeper? If you really noticed the people around you? How much more could you see if you simply spoke less? Blank. Underscore. Blank. Number 3. Depth over volume. Speaking less but saying more. There's something unforgettable about a person who barely speaks, but when they do, you remember it. Their words don't flood you, they pierce you. They're not loud, but they're clear. Not long-winded, but lasting. Because their voice isn't trying to take up space. It's trying to deliver substance. This is where the third trait shines: depth over volume. The Stoic individual doesn't believe in constant commentary. They believe in meaningful contribution. They speak when they have something worth sharing. Not something to prove, not something to control, but something that might actually shift the room. It's like a well-aimed arrow. You don't need 10 arrows if one is enough. In today's world, it's so easy to mistake loudness for confidence. We reward big personalities, fast talkers, and viral monologues. But the truly impactful voices, the ones that stay with us, are often the most measured. They speak less because their thoughts run deeper. And we feel that. They're not trying to win the room. They're trying to understand it. And their words reflect that understanding. Think about someone in your life who was soft-spoken but wise. Maybe a grandparent who didn't say much at gatherings, but when they did, the whole room went quiet. Or a mentor who didn't give you a speech, but gave you one sentence that changed everything. That's the magic of depth. And it's something the Stoics understood centuries ago. Epictetus famously said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because silence often gets misunderstood. People assume you're unsure, weak, or shy. But the Stoic doesn't need to be seen as brilliant every moment. They're okay with appearing quiet, because they know the depth of their mind can't be measured in noise. They don't chase applause. They chase clarity. And so, when they speak, their words resonate. They're not lost in the noise. They cut through it. Ask yourself, what's more memorable? Someone who talks for 20 minutes and says nothing, or someone who says one line that stays in your mind for years? We all know the answer. What if your words carried that kind of weight? Not because you raised your voice, but because you raised your intention? What could change in your career, your relationships, your inner peace, if you spoke less, but meant more? Blank. Underscore. Blank. Number 4. Silence is self-control. Emotional discipline of the Stoic-minded. Isn't it incredible how some people can stay calm while the whole world around them is losing its mind? They don't argue back when provoked. They don't need to clap back on social media. They don't get caught in pointless debates. You see them in everyday life. The friend who won't escalate a heated conversation. The coworker who stays composed when criticized unfairly. The stranger in line who doesn't react to someone being rude. These people are not weak. They are not passive. They are powerful, because they've learned to master self-control through silence. In Stoicism, silence is a form of emotional strength. It's not the absence of words, it's the presence of restraint. When someone insults you, your ego demands a reaction. It wants justice, validation, defense. But the Stoic mind sees this moment as a test. A chance to rise above, to protect your peace, and to avoid being a slave to your emotions. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And the quiet person has already realized it. They don't respond to disrespect by lowering their standards. They don't match chaos with chaos. Instead, they hold the line. Their silence is a refusal to play the game. It says, "You don't have control over me. I choose peace over pettiness." This discipline isn't easy. It's forged over time, often through personal failures, embarrassing outbursts, or moments of regret. Maybe you remember a time when your emotions got the best of you. when you said too much, too soon, and later wished you had just stayed quiet. We've all been there. And that's what makes emotional silence so human and so powerful. It doesn't mean you don't feel the anger, the sadness, or the sting. It means you don't let it own you. Think about it. How many times have you seen someone explode in anger, only to lose credibility, respect, or even relationships? The Stoic knows that every reaction costs energy. And they've learned to spend it wisely. Silence, in this case, is a shield. It's the power to stay grounded when others are spinning. To respond only when the response serves growth, not ego. And when they do speak, it's not to win the argument, but to uplift the room. Now ask yourself, what would happen if you responded to life's provocations with silence first? Would your relationships change? Would you protect more peace? Would you gain more respect, not just from others, but from yourself? Blank. Blank. Number 5. Avoiding drama. Why quiet people don't enter the gossip game. Let's face it, gossip is everywhere. It's in break rooms, group chats, late-night phone calls, and social media comments. It's disguised as concern, curiosity, or bonding. But at its core, gossip is noise. It's distraction. It's chaos. Now imagine someone who never engages in it. They sit quietly when people trash talk others. They don't add fuel to the fire. They don't need to be in the loop about who's dating who said what, or who's being fake. That's not disinterest. That's discipline. People who speak less, especially stoic-minded individuals, often refuse to enter the drama arena because they've learned something simple but powerful. The energy you spend talking about others is energy stolen from building yourself. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." And that includes the conversations you entertain. Quiet people avoid gossip because they understand how quickly words can turn into wounds. How easy it is to speak ill of someone in their absence and justify it as truth. They know that once those words leave your mouth, you can't pull them back. And that what you say about others often says more about you. They stay out of drama not because they're boring, but because they're focused. Their lives are filled with deeper pursuits, building, reflecting, understanding, growing. And drama is a detour they can't afford. This trait might hit close to home. Maybe you've been pulled into gossip circles at work. Maybe you've vented about someone and felt the temporary thrill, followed by a little guilt. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end, hearing your name used in conversations that you never consented to. We all know how it feels. That's why the quiet person's refusal to gossip is so powerful. It's not just silence, it's character. They don't need the cheap high of drama. They don't need to tear others down to feel tall. They're too focused on inner peace to bother with petty noise. And when people realize that they don't engage in gossip, they start to trust them more. Their silence becomes safety. Ask yourself, how would your reputation change if people knew you never talked behind others' backs? How much more respect would you gain if your silence became your loyalty? Blank. Number 6. The respect of words. Why Stoics speak only when it matters. There's something different about a person who speaks like every word has value. They don't ramble. They don't flood conversations with filler. When they speak, you know they've thought about it. You know it means something. That's because they don't speak to impress. They speak to express truth, care, wisdom, insight. And that only happens when someone truly respects the power of words. In Stoicism, language isn't taken lightly. Words can uplift or destroy, inspire or humiliate, clarify or confuse. And the Stoic knows that every sentence carries weight. That's why they don't waste them. They don't overshare. They don't seek validation by talking endlessly. They're not afraid of silence because they're not trying to prove their existence through noise. They use words like a craftsman uses tools, only when needed, only with purpose. It's the difference between someone who's talking just to be heard and someone who's speaking to make a difference. We've all met people who talk constantly, yet say nothing of value. And we've all been impacted by someone who said just one thing at the right moment, and it stayed with us for life. That's the standard the Stoic aims for. They treat speech with reverence. They pause before they speak, filter out the ego, the impulse, and ask themselves, will this help? Will this heal? Is this true? Their speech isn't casual. It's deliberate. And in that deliberateness lies respect, for themselves, for others, and for the moment. Think back to your own life. A teacher who said something that changed your mindset. A friend who offered a few comforting words during a hard time. Or maybe a stranger who spoke one honest sentence that snapped you out of a downward spiral. Those moments matter not because of how much was said, but because of how much it meant. What if every time you spoke, it left someone better than before? What if your words became your legacy? Wouldn't that be worth speaking for? So if you've made it this far, you're not just watching passively, you're part of the few who actually listen, reflect, and finish what they begin. That already sets you apart in a world that moves fast and skips depth. The traits we've talked about today aren't just Stoic philosophy. They're tools for real change in your everyday life. In your conversations, in your relationships, and most importantly, in how you show up for yourself. Drop a full score in the comments if you've watched till the end. That tells me you're part of the 0.01% who actually finish what they start. And if you're serious about leveling up your mindset, mastering your emotions, and living with more purpose than noise, subscribe to the channel. This is just the beginning of your silent power.